Episode 178 of the TV Dudes podcast, recorded April 5th, 2018. The future of superheroes.
The future of superheroes.
Did I say that wrong?
No, you did. You got it right.
Oh, good.
I was echoing you in your delivery.
Oh, okay. I'm not going to go in and do any like special effects for this episode. I hope you're okay with that.
I think we need a lot of CGI. It's a superhero episode.
I mean, I do the most minimal amount of work I can on this podcast, I think.
That's fair. That's also how they did Krypton.
Yeah. Oh, so
I'm getting in early.
Jumping right in. Not feeling Krypton, huh? It's funny. We could insult Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. if either of us watched it. But yes, folks, we are going to be talking about a couple different superhero shows, all that deal with a little bit of the future. They're going to be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5. We might delve a little bit into Season 4 since it's been a little bit over a year since we've discussed the show. Then the return of Legion over on FX for its second season. And this new show called Krypton about superheroes, Superman's grandfather.
Oh, I thought it was about the gas.
Is it about the gas?
It's just like a whole show about one element.
And when you say we are going to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., you mean our two special guests.
Our two special guests, Joe Parsons of Master Pancake and Stag Comedy is joining us.
Hello.
Hey. And explain to us what Master Pancake is.
Master Pancake is essentially a live version of Mystery Science Theater. We watch movies at the Alamo Drafthouse, and we make jokes during it.
I saw one of your earliest performances when you guys were Mr. Sinus Theater, I believe. And you guys,
not a single one since.
You guys did Xanadu at the UT campus.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was, I think, 12 or 13 years ago.
And I was like, what am I seeing?
The first one I ever saw when I moved to Austin was Dirty Dancing.
Oh, yeah.
That was a high bar. And you know what I learned watching that? I learned that nobody puts baby in the corner.
Oh. I learned that only assholes read Ayn Rand.
In fairness, I already knew that.
And that other voice on the microphone is our friend Paul Benjamin, who is a writer of comics and video games. You are currently working over at Daybreak Games, and you're working on DC. They make DC Online, but you're working on some other.
There's a new
project.
unannounced project that I'm working on, and we're
Very
looking
cool.
for people. So go to our site and check out the job offers.
Are you going to eat those people?
I mean, I'm not allowed to say.
See, you always ask. You always ask.
We'd love to have you for dinner.
You are also writing Disney Princess comics right now?
That is true.
Which ones are you working on?
So there's a line from Joe Books called Disney Princess, and it is comic strips. So sometimes it'll be like one funny strip, sometimes it'll be 10 or 12 that all fit together.
Is this like just shared universe of all the princesses?
It's all of the licensed princesses from the Disney Princess license. So essentially all the princesses up to, let's see, not including Moana and not including Frozen.
Yeah, I think I was reading about like who's included in the official Disney Princess lineup, and like those two aren't. But there's a couple that aren't actually like princesses in their movies, but they were included on the list.
Right, technically, like Pocahontas is the daughter of the leader of her tribe, but not technically a princess.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I was like,
But I've gotten to write all of the princesses, which is pretty fun.
And you guys
Alice in Wonderland, is Alice included as a princess?
She is. I don't know. Is she even Disney?
She's Disney.
She's Disney,
She
but
Disney?
she can't
She's
be a
not one of the
princess.
princesses.
Yeah. What's you guys might not know because I don't talk about it a lot, but I own a comic book store, and the Disney Princess comic is hugely popular.
Randy, you always talk about this comic book
I was
store.
being sarcastic.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been, I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old girl. I believe,
Okay.
Joe, you do as well.
I do, yeah.
And so all about this.
I'll say, here's what's fun about it is, at least when I'm writing them, and a lot of other people do it too, our edict at least, it's not just like Pretty Princess, right? So like I did a story
like
where
hardcore
Snow
graphic nudity.
it's still great for kids.
You and Alan Moore and Lost Girls kind of stuff.
I mean, you know, when Cinderella drops acid. No, so
I believe that was
as an
Alice.
example.
That was Alice.
As an example, I did one where Snow White goes to work in the mines with the dwarves. She's like, "Why are y'all always so dirty when you get home?" "Well, I'll go do it with you." And then the gags are things like the dwarves are like, "Oh, these pickaxes are really heavy," and she like picks one up and has no problem and is swinging it around like it's nothing. And then it's like cut over to her lifting their beds to sweep under them, and she's like, "Oh, I guess I get a pretty good workout." Right, so there's an exercise theme, that kind of thing.
I'm not gonna lie.
Nice.
That really sounds like the setup to a porn.
I heard the same thing you did.
It's like, oh, this pickaxe is really heavy. Ooh, you're so dirty. How did you get so dirty?
And now you're no longer writing for that. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for getting me kicked off the book.
But you also worked on You've also worked on several Marvel comics like Hulk and Spider-Man.
I have. I did a Marvel Adventures Hulk for a long run, and I've done a bunch of stories here and there with Spider-Man and Hulk, and I did some video game work on a Spider-Man game and a Wolverine game. I've done lots of other stuff too: World of Warcraft, StarCraft, Star Trek, Muppets, Monsters Inc., all kinds of different properties.
You qualify in legal terms as a legal as an expert witness for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
That is true. And I've watched every episode, most of them, twice.
Wow. Okay,
I
that's
know.
too much. That's too much. Get out of here. There's the door. Seriously.
Because here's what I learned. It's actually much better on a second watch.
I don't believe you.
And like, it's such a high bar. Like, wait, I have to watch it and then I have to watch it again?
Is that because you're drunk by then? Is that because you drink during the first viewing?
It could be brain damage.
And then the second one, you're drunk.
Honestly,
you have memory loss. You forgot you already did it.
I think it's about expectations. You watch that show and you're like, oh, it's going to be like S.H.I.E.L.D. in the comics. And then you're like, oh, this isn't like S.H.I.E.L.D. in the comics. And then you're disappointed. And then you say, fuck this, I'm not watching this show anymore.
And then you're like, what if it was like a lesser version of NCIS?
Yeah. If you say that, then it's great.
Oh, man.
Oh, man. Look, I've watched every episode. Are we jumping into S.H.I.E.L.D.?
No,
We're not ready yet?
No,
All
I'm
right.
just throwing
I've
in
also
cheap
watched.
shots at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we had a special patron, which, by the way, if you guys want to help us out, you can go to patreon.com/tvdudes and make a per episode pledge. And if you guys even want to go up and give the $20 amount, you can special request an episode from us. And that's what our buddy EJ did. I believe EJ likes to torture us a little bit.
I hope so, because if he's sincerely hoping that I'm going to talk about S.H.I.E.L.D. and how great it is,
In flowery terms.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah, but
I'm here for you, EJ.
EJ wanted us to talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. again, and I think EJ knows that we do not watch this show. So we brought in you both, and this works out great because it's point counterpoint, and that, Paul, you seem to really like the show, and Joe, I know you don't.
Well, I mean, I'm a little conflicted because I still watch it. I'm still hoping it's going to turn itself around. But it started out great. Like, I'd say I have a good relationship with it, even though it has disappointed me over and over and over again.
I'll say, there are a lot of things that disappoint me about it, but it is the relationships that I love. It's
Guys,
the character relationships.
That's an abusive relationship that you're in.
Shut up, Randy. You don't understand.
I know S.H.I.E.L.D.
You don't know
says it
what we
loves
have.
you.
Look, S.H.I.E.L.D. always tells us they're sorry.
Yeah, I feel like they are saying that a lot, actually.
Okay, so we're about to jump into this, but before we do, we want to go ahead and do a little bit of light news. We have a couple stories that Randy, what do we got?
All right. So, HBO is adapting Mrs. Fletcher from the Leftovers author Tom Perrotta. Grant, do you know anything about this? I know you were a big fan of Leftovers, the show.
I know that he was a collaborator on The Leftovers, and he wrote the initial book. But I mean, I don't know much about his work outside of this.
So this is they wrote a pilot. It's a comedy series starring Catherine Hahn, who I love. as a
Yep.
divorced mother with a college-age son. It was being described as a dual coming-of-age story.
That's a pretty specific thing to love about her.
I love everything.
Oh, you love her
about
in general.
No,
okay.
I love that specifically, and everything else. So, she's a divorcee and director of a senior center who finds the empty nest syndrome isn't so bad once her son is finally shipped off to college. And so she begins dipping her toe in the dating world once again. So she starts dating at her older age. Her son is then going to college, and we'll see that. It's an HBO comedy. It's got Catherine Hahn. I'm in.
Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah.
It has no agents or shield. I'm out.
Is she?
That's all you want. That's the only show I watched. Did I mention that?
Did they officially cancel I Love Dick?
I think they may have at least not done a second season because they didn't say anything about it here.
Yeah, I think they canceled it.
I think they did too.
It's
yeah.
gone.
Yeah.
But what I do think is interesting about this is that HBO gets these show creators, and then they really love to hold on to them and just turn them on to the next product because
Yeah.
That has been so hit or miss for them.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
feel like they have such a hard time getting a second hit out of the same creator.
Like Alan Ball, for example.
Yeah, actually.
Alan Ball has not done well with his follow-up projects.
No, neither did the
True
guy from
Blood?
Deadwood.
Yep.
True Blood did kind of well for
True Blood
him.
did well for him, but it was terrible.
Yeah, but David Milch,
the first
after
few seasons.
Deadwood.
Yeah, he
Or
did
something.
John from Cincinnati, and then
yeah.
David Chase did another thing for HBO.
Yeah.
And then
Well, I mean, I'm kind
Gosh,
of
what's his name?
mixed on David Simon
Yeah.
because Treme still had a pretty
Yes.
good fan base. It wasn't The Wire.
It wasn't a big hit.
I found it
but it was
boring as all get out.
But The
It was-
Wire took a long time for a lot of people to get into as well.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Treme wasn't
slow,
about
but
anything.
brilliant.
Yeah.
The
It was-
Wire at least was about like
I love Treme, but I understand why people didn't. Like it was like specifically aimed at about 30 people. I happen to be one of them.
yeah, and it was very well done. Great performances.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the atmosphere and all that stuff was all really great. But it just wasn't about anything.
It made The Wire spacingly feel like an action thriller. Yeah.
The Wire was an action thriller.
The Wire was a occasional action thriller.
Yeah,
It was a great
the Deuce,
drama.
though, seems like it's a little bit more in his wheelhouse.
I do love The Deuce.
I do love The Deuce.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
Yeah.
At any rate, yeah, it's been hit or miss, but I'm kind of curious. And this is nothing like The Leftovers. Leftovers was not laugh a minute funny.
At least in the first season. The first season was super bleak. But man, that was my
see, I
favorite
didn't-
show 3 years running.
See, I didn't hang in there.
Yeah.
I couldn't make it through Leftovers.
It was a hard slog. I wound up liking it, but Grant loved it.
Oh yeah.
I was gonna watch it, but I'm Jewish, and I was like, "Boy, this is what I'm in for." I mean, no matter what.
I got some bad news for you.
I'm an atheist, Paul. I know what you mean. So Neil Gaiman is going to produce Gormenghast TV series adaptation. And I really just want to read the headline to say the word Gormenghast.
I don't know what Gormenghast is.
So I remember the BBC series, and it's fantastic. I mean, the BBC series is fantastic. I haven't read the book, but it's Neil Gaiman, so
What
I'm
is-
going to assume.
What is Gormenghast besides a fun word to say?
So essentially, it kind of reminds me of the first short story I did for Metal Hurlant. It's like set
Also
in
a
a
fun word to say.
set
Oh,
in
you
a
dropped it,
set in a Gothic castle.
Gothic castle.
It's a
Sorry, continue.
so it's inside this Gothic castle where there's like this Machiavellian kitchen boy. I guess he's not Machiavellian. He's very sort of worm tongue. Ramsay Bolton. I guess not cruel like Ramsay Bolton, more like Littlefinger.
Just manipulative.
Manipulative, working his way up the social structure. As best
through
I recall.
cuisine.
Oh, Hannibal. Gotcha.
This story, my favorite part of the story, that people listening to the podcast can't see because you got to do a screen rant. But this author photo of Neil Gaiman holding an oversized book is really delightful.
I believe he's holding a tome.
A tome, yeah, that's not a book.
It might
that's
be a
tome.
Librum.
So go to Screen Rant and look up that story because that's my favorite part of the story. All right, so then we've got this. I think this is cool. A League of Their Own is getting a TV series on Amazon.
That's cool.
I think that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It's Amazon, though.
That's true.
I mean, what other shows do you guys like on Amazon?
The Tick?
Is good. Oh, you like the Tick?
I like the Tick.
Oh,
it's
it's
not
okay.
it's
I
not
kind
the
of enjoyed The
same
Tick.
as the. I mean, nothing's going to be as good as the animated series because there's no Chairface Chip and Dale, and it's not the same as the Warburton version, but
Yeah.
it's still great in its own way.
Yeah, we watched it when we did Amazon pilot season a couple years ago.
Yeah. I feel like with Amazon, my problem with almost every Amazon show, and I think it may be all of them, it's always like you have to preface it by saying, well, it's not Netflix. But for Amazon, it's pretty good.
The Man in the High Castle is effing brilliant.
But it's not Netflix.
Really?
I did not love Man in the High Castle. I find all of Amazon stuff a little slow.
I don't know if I fully gave it a chance. I watched like the first episode and I went,
Oh yeah,
I
no,
don't
you
know.
got to watch more of it.
I watched the whole first season. I liked it. I didn't
right.
love it. I don't know. Amazon, they have not had a hit for me. I really like Sneaky Pete.
Well, I mean, they had Transparent, which the first season was incredible.
It was really good,
first
but then
season
it
was
went,
great.
went downhill. But anyway, League of Their Own getting a good TV. It's a good premise for a TV show.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. And then,
I feel like this next story should have been tied to the first one.
oh man, yeah, we were talking about HBO. So, True Detective season 3 director Jeremy Saulnier leaves filming early. True Detective, after that brilliant first season, has been so troubled.
That's an example of, I heard season 2 is shitty. I didn't watch it. Hey,
was.
by the way, can I say shitty on your podcast?
You can.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and that's an accurate word too. The problem, season 2, it's like they thought the best part about season 1 on True Detective was the mystery and the intrigue, and they decided to double down on that and skip out on actual plot.
Oh,
Yeah.
but also
Nothing
not
happened.
deliver. Like, I already felt there was a problem with the first season that, like, it ends kind of limply. Like, they don't take down anyone. They think they have, like, one fall guy, but, like, the bigger problem that was going on, it's just kind of left open-ended.
Lee Majors was in it
Yes, Lee Majors was in it.
as the fall guy.
That's right.
That's old school.
So, yeah, I'm just kind of disappointed. What's the guy's name? The Austin dude who's the writer?
Nick Pizzolatto?
Nick Pizzolatto.
Yeah.
He seems like he's trouble.
Yeah.
No one seems to want to work with him.
Yeah.
Kerry Fukunaga from the first season, his directing was incredible.
Yeah.
In fact, it almost might have like taken first place over Nick Pizzolatto's writing.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is that True Detective season 1 was sort of alchemy. They caught all these sort of troubled, like potentially troubled actors, writers, directors, and it all came together in this sort of beautiful piece. And trying to recreate that is really tricky,
Especially when you put Vince Vaughn in there.
especially with Vince Vaughn in there.
There were a lot of things about season 2 that were intriguing. Like, they had some good concepts around.
Yeah.
Like, a dirty cop teaming with, like, there was, like, the team up between a dirty cop, a crime boss who's, like, trying to do the right thing, and then, like, a disgraced cop or whatever.
Yeah, I don't know how you make a sex cult boring, but they did.
Boy, they sure did. And you know what?
I've been in a few sex cults.
Spoiler.
that
Can we do
weren't that great.
spoilers for season 2 of
spoilers
True
for season
Detective?
2, yeah.
All right. So what kind of struck me is that, in the first episode of season 2, you want to know who killed this guy. They find the body. You want to know who killed him. And by the end of the entire season, not only do you not find out, but you don't care.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, it
there's
doesn't matter.
absolutely no
Yeah.
payoff. Nothing mattered.
Yeah.
They got so deep into other things. Jesus, Grant.
I keep dropping my headphones. But if I mention that that's what happened, I don't have to edit it later.
What's great is it sounded like Joe got really upset and knocked something around the room.
This is bullshit.
He loves
they got
season
all
2.
into like they ended up killing what's his face, John Carter of Mars.
Yeah.
Oh, Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah, they killed Taylor Kitsch and they killed all these other people and they did all this stuff. There was a sex cult, and in the end, none of that had anything to do with who killed that one dude.
No.
It was
all-
completely
all
irrelevant.
red herrings,
Like,
yeah.
all red herrings.
I think Pizzolatto was just like, oh shit, the first season's a hit. I got to hustle and just try and throw something together. Mystery, no delivery.
Yeah. I think I give HBO credit for trying to do season 3 to see if they can bring this back, because it's not a bad brand. Sort of weird detective fiction, like that's a good idea, but man, it's a really uphill thing for them to do, and for them to lose their director does not sound like a good sign.
Yeah. Well, do you guys want to go ahead and take a break so we can hash out Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
Let's take a break, and then we will discuss every character in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and come up with the profiles, and then we'll come back.
words of Randy Lander, we're going to line up this order of TV discussion as an unconventional shit sandwich. I believe that's what you called it.
I actually called it a bizarro shit sandwich to keep with the comic theme.
Oh, okay, that works
But
better.
then
Which means it would taste delicious.
Yeah, it would taste delicious and smell great. But then Joe Parsons nailed it, I think, with the oops all berries of shit sandwiches.
No, I'm not okay with this.
At which point you got super defensive about oops all berries.
It's my favorite cereal by far.
But if it was a shit sandwich,
How can it
would
be your
all
favorite
shit.
cereal when there's peanut butter Captain Crunch?
I buy 2 boxes of Oops All Berries each week, and
Oh, that's not good.
I'm dying.
You should see a doctor.
That's all he eats. It's in the beer he has in front of him right now.
Although I can imagine you seeing your doctor, and your doctor goes, "Oh, oops, it's all berries in there."
Oh, you have oops all berries syndrome?
You got oops all barium enema.
So we're going to start with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and then we're going to talk about Legion, Season 2 premiere, and then Krypton to close things out. But first off, guys, last year we discussed Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., probably because EJ also requested this
Pretty sure.
of us. Because I think Randy and I decided we were donezo with this show for a while back.
But I went in and I watched some of the Ghost Rider season. But then when it got requested again, I was like, fool me 3 times, shame on you. And we hooked in Joe and Paul.
Did you watch the first half of the Ghost Rider season or the second half?
I think it was the first half.
Yeah, so we
The
saw
Ghost Rider part. Not
Yeah.
the,
we saw Ghost Rider, and we saw a little bit of the Life Model
A
decoys.
little bit of the LMDs.
But we didn't see any of the Agents of Hydra, which also leads into the Agents in Space or whatever's going on this season.
Yeah.
So I don't know necessarily where we should kick things off. Maybe we should just start with season 5. But if you guys want the background that we haven't even addressed what happens beforehand.
Yeah, let's hear what's going on.
Well, one thing about it. So speaking of the Ghost Rider season, which I thought was pretty promising, the Ghost Rider part itself was actually kind of cool. It was well done. It's like the best Ghost Rider has been portrayed.
Yeah, although that's a low bar.
That is a little.
It's a low bar, but
But I will say that they've been doing this weird trend for the last like 3 seasons where they kind of mash 2 seasons together, and it's really strange. Like halfway through the season, there's just a total like tonal shift.
Isn't that
and it
well,
just
and
launches into
that's
another
what I
thing.
like about it is that they're like, because it used to be we're going to commit to this one thing for a whole season, and if you don't like Inhumans, guess what? You're getting a whole season about the
Yeah.
Inhumans.
Well, but you do
Enjoy.
anyway.
And spoiler, no one likes Inhumans.
Yeah. I mean, but they do that anyway. So
Yeah.
they fully commit to both things, even if they're both terrible.
Isn't that though the problem of like modern TV landscape that like seasons are getting shorter? Everyone's doing 13 episodes max. Like they're down to like 10 or 8. Like
yeah.
the Netflix model.
8 seems to be the standard.
It's kind of like the ideal, but you know they're saddled with doing 22 episodes a season.
So we're essentially
Whoa.
getting 2 seasons each season. Essentially,
Right.
so we're really talking about like seasons 5 and 6 or 6 and 7 of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right, when you get to that mid-season break.
It's essentially a new season.
Yeah. Yep. And
Wow, which is that's a good segue into this most recent season, season 5, Shield in Space. Shields in Space, because it was so weird, and I've never felt like a show suffered more from its set than anything else I've ever seen.
that is a problem for the show, right?
You saw Inhumans?
Set and
Well, yeah, okay, but the whole season, the entire season, was filmed in like plywood hallways. Like it looked terrible. It looked like a high school production.
Sure. So here's the thing, because there's a lot of stuff I will not defend about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The sets are one of them. For me, it's the characters and the characterization that makes that show great. So in season 1, you've got Melinda May, badass martial artist, and someone says, aren't you going to take a gun? And she says, if I need a gun, I'll take one. And then in the course of the episode, she beats the crap out of some people, takes their guns and uses their guns, right? And it's like, that tells you everything you need to know about Melinda May. And then later, I don't remember what season it is, it's 1 or 2, she has to go undercover and she's like dancing and laughing, and the agents listening in are like, what is that sound? What's wrong? Is something wrong? And they're like, no, it's May. She's laughing. And they're like, oh my God, I can't believe she's laughing. And then
That scene was painful, by the way.
And that's fair enough, but it's funny characterization.
Yes.
And then you get to the most recent season after they've gotten back from space. Spoiler alert, they get back from space.
Spoiler, they're in space.
And they're all talking about all of the terrible stuff that has happened to them as agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They're like, oh, and then, we went into the Matrix, and then we became outlaws, and then so-and-so died, and Melinda's like, dancing.
I did see that. That was the episode I watched. I watched one episode because EJ demanded it. I watched an episode, and that reference was in that episode.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
Well, to get you caught up, this season started them. They found themselves in space on the remnants of a space station, 150 years in the future.
90 years in the future. I
90
read the
years in the
Wikipedia.
90 years in the future, and they're on this space station, orbiting space station that is really just a bunch of concrete walls. That's all it is. You don't get the grandeur of being in space. You just kind of...
There's a few shots of space. There's some
Out of a
flying in
window.
space.
Yeah, there's
a little bit. I'm
every
just
now and then
saying.
they'll say oh, by the way, these plywood hallways, you're in space. You just, even though it's all just gray and putty colored.
But then you have Mac referencing every space movie where they're like, let's split up. We can cover more ground that way. And Mac's like, have none of you seen a movie in space? And by the way, you know who's going to be the first person to die? By the way, if you don't know, Mac is a black guy.
Yeah.
But also you have things like Mac knocks out the guy who is about to tell Phil Coulson information they need to have because the guy's holding a gun on Phil and Phil's gotten him talking. So Phil's not really in danger, but Mac walks in, sees him, he knocks him out. And later on, the guy's still unconscious and Phil's like, Mac, how hard did you hit this guy? As hard as I possibly could. Right? What kind of question is that? He was holding a gun on you.
There is definitely some clever dialogue. It has that. I still think the dialogue itself still has the crackle of the first season and all that stuff. It's just at this point there's 4 people left in S.H.I.E.L.D. and they're in the future. And they're just trying to get back to the past in a time machine, and they're dealing with a substance called gravitonium. It is so. It's just. It's lost me, and I like the show, I do, and I like the people that are on it, and I like the characters, and there's a lot that I really like about it. I think it's a cool idea for a show. Boy, it is being very poorly executed.
I feel like that's super kind. I remember watching this show and I'm like, I don't like the characters. I don't like the plot. I don't like how they ruined Agent Coulson from the character he was in Marvel movies.
That's the thing. I think the actors here are blameless. All these actors, I like. The Fitz and Simmons and
Grant
Mac.
Ward became great once he got to be a bad guy.
Yeah.
I thought.
Melinda May, I forget the actress's name now. I'm a big fan of hers.
Ming-Na Wen?
Ming-Na Wen,
Ming-Na
she's
Wen.
great. Phil Coulson, love him. And somehow they've taken all these characters I like, and I don't care if they live or die in any way. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a failure of execution, like Joe said. Also, I don't think I'm behind the times here. Disney owns ABC, right? Did Disney run out of money in some way? Why the fuck does it look so cheap?
I don't know why it looks cheap, especially compared to, not to skip ahead, but compared to Krypton, which looks like it cost a fortune.
By the way, I mean, the salaries...
Krypton or Star Trek.
So
they
first
make a
of
lot of
all,
money with this show.
Disney
What are they
does a
doing?
lot of stuff on the cheap.
Yeah, but
I don't know why that show always looks cheap, but there's got to be a reason.
it can't be the salaries of the cast members. There's nobody like A-list or
But
B-list.
Randy, we were complaining about this in the pilot episode when he hops in the car that's supposed to fly through the
It
air.
looks cheap.
Or what's his name? Cyborg dude who jumps out of the building
Deathlock.
and Deathlock. And it just looks
so bad.
Here's the thing. I guess I think of it kind of like Buffy, right? And it's got that original Whedon element to it, right?
Yeah.
And a Whedon working on it. And if you watch Buffy, the effects are bad, and the sets are bad, and there's a lot of it that
20 years ago.
looks
I was gonna
cheap.
say.
I understand, but even then it looked cheap. I remember one of my friends saying, "You need to watch Buffy. You will love it." First season's okay. It's not great. I was like, I have to suffer through 13 crappy episodes to enjoy this show. F you. And then finally I watched it, and of course I loved it.
I will put any season 1 episode of Buffy against any episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. any of them, any of the season 1 episodes of Buffy up against any episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can't think of a single one where I was like, oh, that one was
That would be an intriguing
Because you're not
challenge.
remembering all of the
Because I do
episodes
think
of
it
Buffy
could be
season
done.
1.
You could take the best episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. might be better than the worst episode
like
of Buffy.
the
It
post
might.
Winter Soldier Hydra takes over, like the pinnacle of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's the pinnacle of the show, right? The Hydra is revealed to be
Those
S.H.I.E.L.D.
were some great
and-
episodes, yeah.
And they, the Ward is revealed to be bad by
Season 2,
I
guess.
think that's part of. I think you're pointing out though one of the biggest problems that this show has had is that it's never been able to be the show that it should have been.
its concept was eradicated from the start.
Like
crippled by
from the
Marvel.
start,
Yeah.
they knew they couldn't really be Shield long term
Yeah.
because they knew this turn was coming.
Yeah.
And the rest of the series has been. As far as we know from the movies, there's no Shield, so we've got to be this underground organization.
I disagree. I think if you think about the way they handled it in the movies, and then on the show where they said like, okay, yeah, there's no more Shield because it all crumbled and there was all the Hydra stuff.
Right.
So now there's just no more Shield except these 6 people.
Yeah.
Like now we are Shield, and like I could see that working. That's actually a blessing in disguise for them. But at the same time, then they get more ambitious with the plots, and like you can't have an intergalactic storyline with 6 people.
Yes.
And like they don't have. I mean, it's just it doesn't make any sense, and like it's too much. Like they get into stuff that is doomsday things that they just don't pick up the phone and call the Avengers.
That's the other thing. They keep they decided all of a sudden they're going to deal with Ghost Rider, and I understand you want to bring in Ghost Rider, but all of a sudden they're dealing with a Darkhold, and they're the line of defense against Why were they dealing with magic? That is not Phil Coulson's.
because they were doing Doctor Strange in the movies.
Yeah,
Everything in this show is playing catch up or like trying to play along. Like in some way, it's still integrated with the MCU. But the sad thing is that the Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't give a fuck about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
No.
They
Well,
never have.
It's actually my understanding of it, and I could be wrong, but from what I've heard and read, is there's a split.
Yeah.
There was a creative split between the people running the film and the people running television. And
guess who lost?
And they essentially, and so they essentially separated them into fiefdoms as opposed to film really bringing in television.
Well, okay, but.
So
and I understand there's different
weird
rights
fences.
involved when you get into Netflix and all that stuff, but there's also the Defenders.
Yeah.
There's also all the other Marvel properties. It seems like they could do. They had what's her face, Lady Sif.
Yeah.
Show up on a couple of episodes,
Yeah.
and like that kind of thing is gone.
Yeah.
Like they just don't even deal with
I think
that
that
shit
was before
anymore.
the big split.
Well, I think
you had Nick Fury show up.
It feels to me like it's like you've got the little brother who desperately wants to play with Big Brother. Big Brother is the MCU, and the little brother is the TV shows. And the little brother is trying so hard. He's like, "Oh, my big brother's into magic now. I'm going to be into magic." And it's just sad and pathetic. And Big Brother doesn't even notice, or maybe occasionally he kicks the little brother in the teeth. I don't know where I'm going with this metaphor anymore.
I don't even know they get to be called brothers. I feel like that's in some ways too familial.
It's
and
actually
on
like
the
a
same plane.
stalkerish fan.
Yeah, it's like we're not. I don't know you.
don't
Get the
know
fuck
you.
away from me. But like, okay, let me ask you guys this. I read the synopsis, and from of this season of Shield season 5, and episode by episode, it seems like what's going on is that the whole team was initially transported 90 years into the future, or most of the team except for Fitz, right?
Yep.
Because they were there to help stop some cataclysmic event. And they are being held captive by the Kree, right?
Right.
Yep.
So if one still wants to draw parallels between what's going on here and what's going on in the MCU, the assumption is that Thanos was in Thanos's Age of Infinity Wars?
Yeah.
The Infinity Wars was in a way playing a role in whatever cataclysmic event happens that they have to behind the scenes prevent?
No, I think it's clear that it's going to be part of the show.
Yeah.
It
So then
seems
it was
like it's
Quake,
more
right?
like,
Yes.
hey, there's Guardians of the Galaxy, and we're about to do Infinity Gauntlet, so we want to do a thing in space.
They basically know that if they infuse... This is so stupid. It sounds so stupid to say it out loud. If they give Quake, if they infuse her with gravitonium, it will enhance her powers to such a degree that she can destroy the world. And they've called this program that was in development for for 40 years or so, the Destroyer of Worlds, which then everybody kind of has this big aha moment because that's what they've been calling her the whole time they were in the future.
And there's also there's a little girl who was introduced in a previous season who is she's a precog, and so a lot of these events, like the reason they were expecting her in the future was because the girl knew that they were going to go to the future.
Oh my God, they did prophecy stuff too? That's never a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait, Destroyer of the Worlds. Maybe I'm not fully up on my Marvel. Isn't that Galactus's nickname?
No, he's Devourer.
Devourer of Worlds.
Okay, there's all these.
Just gonna destroy it.
Grant.
She's not gonna eat it.
Yeah,
she's not a monster.
He eats worlds. He doesn't
Wait,
destroy
wait, and who's the one who's friend of all worlds?
that's the Aquarian.
Okay.
That's a joke that like 4 Marvel fans are like, fuck yeah, Aquarian.
I am deep into Marvel, and I didn't get that.
He's Space Jesus.
Oh, I know who he is.
Oh, okay, good.
I recognize him. I know the white outfit with the blue fringes.
Wait, I thought Jesus was Space Jesus.
No, he's Earth Jesus.
Jesus doesn't have borders?
Also, I heard recently he has risen.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, I heard that too.
I don't know what that means, but I've been seeing
good
signs
news.
around town.
So, do you guys get the sense that this season is being divided still? Because it seems like the first
Basically,
part
they're
was
in space, and now they're on Earth.
and now they're on Earth. But
Yeah,
is there like a
back in the
dividing
present.
line, like with what's going on plot wise?
Yes.
Essentially, yeah. Sorry, Joe. Do you
Well,
want
no. Yeah, yes. So once they get back, there's like this huge climax where they get in the time machine and they go back. And then
And this is all because Fitz somehow built the machine, but also
Okay,
went
so,
back in
so
time.
here's
a
a
little
great
complicated,
so this was a great moment though. So Fitz, they all get transported into the future.
Yeah.
They don't know where Fitz is. Then there's an episode with Fitz and Mockingbird's ex-husband, Lance, who's a fun character. Together, they go and do a mission to get Fitz to the future.
Wait. They
Yep.
brought back Lance Hunter, but not Mockingbird?
That's
She was
right.
on another show.
Oh, God damn it.
I know.
Yep.
Wait, what show's she on right now?
I don't know. She's on...
She's on
Orville.
Orville.
That's
Orville.
right.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
I miss her.
Me too. She's my favorite part
She
of the
was
show.
great.
Yeah.
So you
Is
watch her on
Orville coming back?
What's
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Sidebar,
it's
is Orville
it's
coming
back,
back?
coming back for a
Okay.
new season, and there's more controversy around it. It's topical. So
enough.
Like an ointment.
so Fitz works with a Chronicom who's like an immortal robot dude, and
Who only showed up now.
By the way, I
They-
love that you blow right past that.
Yeah.
they put Fitz in suspended animation, and he's got a cache of weapons that he set aside in a location that will exist in the future. And then he gets out in the future, and he's pretending to be a space bounty hunter so he can go try to buy Quake
Hold
at
up.
the Kree
Yeah.
slave auction.
Yeah. These are, by the way, these are all
Don't
the
get bogged
ideas.
down in these details. We gotta keep moving,
These are
Randy.
all of the things that they just kind of glance past. They're like, oh yeah, also there's these immortal robot guys, and he's a space bounty hunter. But the important thing is that they get into the bunkers.
But
There's
but they
more
don't-
bunkers.
But here's what I love about it is they don't just blow past it. There's a scene where
They talk about it for 3
Simmons,
minutes.
yeah, where Simmons and Quake are like, wow, what's the deal with, like, how is Fitz even here? I don't know. He just showed up in a spaceship with a laser gun. It's like, that's a baller move.
To call out your own bad writing?
Yeah.
All right.
To acknowledge crazy shit.
Oh, my God.
So I'm getting a sense of this season from you guys, and Joe, I don't even know why you're sticking with it,
I still like it. I can't. It's a guilty pleasure at this point.
but I do get a sense of why Paul's still kind of enjoying the ride despite all of its problems.
Here's the thing. I'm a writer, so I know how hard it is to write a good plot where
Sure.
everything holds together. And I feel like they do some stuff that I'm like, ugh, I don't love that. But they don't do a lot of things that bug the crap out of me. Like, there are some shows that I watch that I'm like, oh, I want this to be so much better than it is. But then they keep having another speedster as a villain and weird, crazy, stupid time travel stuff. I'm sorry, did I?
So here's my
There's a
question.
lot of good shows out there.
Because you are a writer and you're familiar with this kind of thing. Do you think it's possible, and this is just my theory, that there's some executive who's like 10-year-old is giving him notes and he's like, okay, just so you guys know, because the writer's room, he's like, this season, I want a space bounty hunter, immortal robots, time travel, and a destroyer of worlds. Work that out.
No, I think it's exclusively like, all right, look, we got to get the fuck out of the way of Marvel movies.
Right.
We got to get out of their way. They are heading towards Infinity War.
Let's jump ahead in time so our characters aren't even involved in that.
That's right. That's exactly what they did. And they're like, and do it on the cheap.
I think
They're like, okay, we'll film in a hallway. We'll film in a hallway for
It's
11
worked out
episodes.
for all the Netflix Marvel shows.
That's a great hallway scene. I feel like they're looking back at the old 1960s, like Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. stories that were in Tales of Suspense. One of those, like, Tales of.
Yeah.
Where S.H.I.E.L.D. is like, hey, we've developed Operation Brain Blast or whatever it is. We've got some psychic agents now. And Mentallo, who is a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, is like, F you, you're not building machines that can do what I do. I'm going to go help the Fixer. Oh, the Fixer broke himself out of jail because he's so super smart. I'm going to go partner with him, and then we're going to come and we're going to invade S.H.I.E.L.D., just the two of us. We're going to take Nick Fury captive, and we're going to put him in a mask that allows us to control his mind, and then we're going to use him to take over S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, that crazy crap happened all the time in those old comics, and I feel like that's what they're doing. They're just saying,
I don't think the writing
F
is
it,
bad.
we're gonna go crazy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the writing is bad on this show. Which is kind of a weird distinction because that's usually my go-to of like, here's why this is bad, is because they can't write their way out of a corner. Like, they're just kind of, they don't know what to do. But the writing on this show, I think the dialogue is really good. I think they're being really ambitious with their storytelling, which is pretty
ambitious
cool.
is definitely a word.
Yeah. But my God, the execution is just so terrible. And like I said when I started this, I've never seen a TV show suffer more from its sets than anything else. Just completely takes you out of what's actually happening. Because, like I said, 11 episodes, they were in space 90 years in the future, but you wouldn't know it because it looks like the same concrete bunker they're in every other episode. And then when they get back to the present, they go back into a bunker.
Yeah.
They're in a bunker now. They're still in a bunker.
There's a lot of being in bunkers, and that is the thing that drives me bonkers.
Okay, so there's 3 episodes left for this season.
God,
Are
really?
there really only 3 episodes?
There's
There's
3?
a lot to wrap up.
It's
thought we were done.
I think it's only an 18-episode run, and I'm curious what you guys think they're going to either end with, or where do they go from here?
I don't think they'll get renewed. I really don't, because
Their numbers are still kind of high, actually.
For network TV, I mean, it's...
yeah, well, okay, so here's the problem they're going to have is that there is no way for them to get around Infinity War.
Yeah.
Like, you can't ignore it the way they've ignored everything else that's happened since the show started. Like, they did acknowledge Civil War.
Did they?
Yeah, so, like, the whole Agents of Hydra and the...
Remember,
you know,
yeah, Quake has to sign the
Oh, that's right. I remember
Sokovia
that.
Accords.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
well, okay, I'm not talking
Inhuman
about, like, a passing
leader of
line of
S.H.I.E.L.D.
dialogue, like when S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra, like, they, whatever that was, season 2, it was parallel to...
Oh, the Winter Soldier
That's
thing?
Winter Soldier.
Winter Soldier, excuse me.
Winter
Sorry.
Soldier
Winter
was
Soldier.
long,
Winter
yeah.
Soldier.
Oh, yeah, huge.
Winter Soldier was a major part
Yeah,
of the TV
yeah,
show.
yeah.
Right.
After that, they haven't acknowledged anything else.
Right,
Yeah.
except for a line or two.
Line or
here
two,
and
yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is fair.
So, yeah,
I don't know how they avoid it.
I can't wait till next season when they bring Thanos in.
That'd be great.
And he joins the team.
they can only afford the action figure, though, so it's just going to waddle in.
No, it's just someone with his fist. You never see him. It's like Dr. Claw from
Claw.
Inspector Gadget.
It's perfect.
He's the
You
guy
just-
giving the orders.
You just get, like, Ron Perlman to shave his head and
They're-
make him Thanos.
They're going to become agents of Thanos.
I'm pretty sure actually what's going to happen is they're going to team up with everybody from Legion because the universes are going to get merged after the Infinity War.
Oh,
I
Paul,
don't know.
that's so
Don't do that.
sadly optimistic.
No, I would not
But-
want that to happen.
Also, great segue.
Thank you.
Guys, let's talk about Legion. Legion's back for season 2, episode 1, and it is just as fucking bonkers.
I am so glad to see that they decided to just go straight down the middle and just have a story where everything's really clear and
Yeah.
obvious,
Yeah.
and there's no subtext, and it's just straight ahead. Like none of that complicated weird stuff from season 1.
Is Grant Morrison involved in
I'm
this
kidding.
at all?
That's not what they did.
It is so psychedelic
it's
and
so great.
Like when when I watch how ambitious this is, I always think about the not only the cinematography, which is spectacular, but also the editing and how masterfully the editor is able to cut everything together and just make this work and make it so entrancing.
Yeah. It's the Bizarro shield. It looks expensive. It's weird, but in a way that draws you in. And the characters are fantastic, and they're given great dialogue and good things to do.
I mean, we watched like the first probably 5-10 minutes, and I don't know about you guys, but I was like, "What the fuck is going on?"
No
and
idea.
and you love that you don't know what the fuck is going on.
So I watched the whole first season in the last couple days.
This is insane to me because I don't think that's a binge show.
I know
it wasn't easy.
It helps binging it actually. There's
Really?
a lot of stuff where I was like, oh, now this all makes sense.
It actually
It's a
helped
little
me. So the guy
easier.
with the scars on his face, that helped. Only having seen that 3 days ago.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I watched like the whole thing, and so most of it, or actually all of it, I watched without my wife there. But I'm just trying to finish the episode from yesterday, so I was watching that tonight. And my wife walked by as I'm watching the first like 5-10 minutes of the show, and she kind of stopped and watched it for a second. She just said, "Wow, that's a beautiful shot." And I was like, this whole show is like that.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah,
it's
beautiful.
a
Every
beautiful
minute is
show.
an experience.
And then she was like, "What the hell is happening?" I was like, you know what? I just watched all of this, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell any of this is.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful. I can't look away.
Well, that's the other thing, and it's not just the sets and the cinematography. Like the costuming is fantastic. The period piece really gets across all the weird.
But is it a period piece?
Is it a
That's
period
what's
piece?
great.
Exactly,
It's
yeah.
like so unclear.
It exists with like outside of time,
Yeah.
and like the Shadow King. I don't want to think about the time aspect.
Yeah.
I just want to exist in this world and just digest whatever they're putting out there for
I was
us.
trying to look for clues about that because I thought that was going to be some kind of twist at some point.
Yeah.
But at where is he? Oh, it's when the guy with the scars on his face.
Yep.
He's going back to work, and they're trying to place him now that he has a disability.
I think his name is Clark.
Clark. Okay. Well, he's sitting at a desk, and they're using one of the iMacs that has the little like swivel head. So like the little dome thing with the swivel head. That's the computer they have. So I'm like, okay. This isn't in the past or the present.
In the very
it's like the early 2000s.
when he's interrogating David in the very beginning of the show, he's got some kind of an iPad. He's got some kind of a tablet.
and all their clothes are very retro.
Their clothes are all like
very
retro,
and
60s,
I thought,
70s.
okay, there's times where you can see them using some sort of like flat screened thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, you know what though? This is a world where super geniuses exist, so maybe they're just they invented their own thing. But
Even their X-Men mansion seems very 70s, like where they were in the first season. It's like, what is this place?
And then they have like the hollow watches that like does the giant hologram of what's
Yeah.
his name?
Yeah.
Bill Irwin.
Yeah, back at headquarters, right? And he's talking to them
Carrie.
from his lab.
Carrie. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carrie Loudermilk.
So, okay, a quick synopsis of this episode, if
luck.
that's possible. We have, what's the main dude's name?
David.
David.
David
So
Haller.
David has been gone. He disappeared in an orb a little over a year ago, and he's
Well, under a
suddenly
year ago. 362 days.
That's right. It
Yeah.
is specifically spelled out.
Okay, yeah. So he's been gone about a year, and he comes back, and he thinks only a day has passed, or he might potentially be lying, but everything's a little bit confused in that area. And since then, it seems like their little pseudo X-Men, since they can't call themselves X-Men,
right.
their little operation has been taken on by a bigger government
They've merged.
control.
Well,
and-
they've merged with the group that was chasing them in
Yeah.
season 1, Division
and now they're
3.
now they're in Division 3 of this like 3-tier system. They're the tip of the spear, and it's interesting how they've
so
moved, and they have
bonkers.
this new overlord. What's his name? Fukunaga? Is that right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
he is
Admiral Fukunaga.
he is some sort of like he wears a giant basket on his head.
And speaks through 3 women who use like the portal
and
voice.
and
Also, I'm not
have
sure
androgynes.
he's a he.
yeah, I'm not sure
Yeah.
either.
Like I can even tell from the body gender, which is cool.
Yeah.
They're genderless, so they're like women bodies, but they have mustaches and weird bowl haircuts.
Yeah.
They're robots, but they...
So I'm wondering, like, you guys are comic experts. Like, what are these characters?
I
referencing?
specifically
Grant Morrison.
don't Google on
I'm telling you,
shows
it's like
that.
straight Grant Morrison, Alan Moore kind of stuff, where it's just
Yeah.
like really weird Invisibles kind of stuff.
Like that really reminded me of those triplets that follow around Emma Frost.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
stuff for
Step
cuckoos.
But they're in The Gifted. Like, actual Step for Cuckoos are in The Gifted.
Yeah.
Okay, but it seems like maybe they're drawing a parallel.
Well-
like these are the speakers for this other guy.
That's the thing
or
Legion
girl.
does really well that I like, is that they riff on this stuff. But other than a few direct parallels like the Shadow King and David Haller, they're making nods. Like, David Haller's love interest is very rogue. She can touch people and take their powers.
And she switches bodies.
Yeah.
switches bodies, but it's very rogue.
But she
yes.
can't touch anyone, which
And
is rogue.
they gave her that.
roguelike.
The Carrie and his badass ass kicking twin, or what the girl who lives inside him.
Symbiote, yeah.
That's sort of Madroxy in some ways, but it's different from Madrox.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're taking what is in the comics and doing a new spin on it. I feel like the Step for Cuckoos reference makes perfect sense. It's not that, but it's a nod to that.
Well, but I don't know that it's derivative because at this point, all of the superpowers have been written.
Yeah.
Like,
Right,
you
yeah.
can't make a new one. Everybody's
Right,
thought
that's
of
true.
every ability there ever was. And
Yeah.
so this is the best way to be original that you could be because
Yeah.
they're just...
No, I love it. I think it's
Yeah.
really cool that they do this because everybody riffs on everything else, and usually it's kind of tired or predictable. This is just like this is someone who clearly has a love for the superhero,
Yeah.
or clearly has a love for the comics, but filters it through such an original voice that it never feels like just a lazy remix.
And,
And
yeah,
that's Grant
that's what
Morrison,
it
that's
is.
Alan Moore. You're not wrong. That's
Yeah,
what they
it's
do
the
too.
presentation.
What I found most fascinating about this is that the David character, we get this build up to this climax at the end of the episode where he is being a little bit indirect, a little bit. He's hiding information from
aloof.
aloof from Sid, his girlfriend, and from everyone really about what his relationship might be with the Shadow King and where he's been this whole time.
Right.
And we get these little vignettes, these narrations by John Hamm that are going
Yeah.
on.
Oh, yeah.
And those are fantastic. I was
Right.
like, oh, that's John Hamm. And I knew that because of Mad Men, but also kind of because of, what's that, Kimmy Schmidt? Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's
John
the
Hamm.
Reverend.
But anyway, we get this sneaking suspicion that, despite the Shadow King potentially leaving him, he's still infected by an idea that's been implanted in his mind. It seemed a little bit almost like Inception in that way.
Well, it did, and it also there was it's so deep. There's the announcement that they keep making in the new headquarters that is essentially, if you're having thoughts that seem like maybe they're not your thoughts,
report it.
Yeah.
But
That was
but
so...
there's one of them. They're like
That was so great.
repeating audio hallucinations. Repeating audio hallucinations.
yeah, I remember that part.
And then they could just go on with the rest of the announcement.
That's
and,
so
and
great.
You're like, what is
Guys,
happening?
we're skipping over the weirdest thing that happened in this whole episode, which was the dance number.
I fucking love the dance
Okay,
number.
fucking
I have a
loved it.
theory on the dance number.
Okay.
Because there was
So-
a dance number in season 1, too.
There was a dance number in season 1, but
Very
in this
Bollywood
one,
dancing thing.
so in this one, it is basically a dance-off between David and his backup dancers,
Yep.
Lenny and her backup dancers, and
Jermaine
vampire
Clement.
Jermaine Clements,
yeah.
whatever his character's name is.
Oliver Bird.
Oliver, thank you,
right.
and Oliver and his backup dancers. My theory is that we've seen a lot of psychic battles in comics, and it's usually either psychic people punching each other or they're throwing energy at each other.
Waves coming from their head.
And I felt like, holy shit, every psychic battle from now on needs to be a dance off.
I think you're right.
That's what it was, I
Right.
think.
Well, I thought that initially when I saw it, but after the big reveal at the end where he's under the impression that Sid from the future needs him to go back and help what's his name, Shadow King,
Yeah.
find his actual body.
Yeah.
That what we were seeing there was more of like a courting dance than an actual like battle between them. I thought, in
That's
a way,
not how I
like
saw it.
they all squared off, and then it was like this kind of like we are all like working together, and that was the kind of way that I guess the director wanted
that's
to
not
show
how I
that
saw
like,
it at all.
they're trying to be like, hey, we're all together, we can work together.
But see,
that's not how I saw that at all.
how did you interpret it?
Well, first of all, I thought it was way too aggressive and confrontational to be some sort of mating dance because it was a fight. Like there was no like reconciliation at the end, even though later there was. Anyway, I saw it as more of a communication. That it was some sort of nonverbal way that they were talking to each other, that only they knew how to talk to each other because some sort of weird unspoken thing. Plus, we don't even know that that actually happened.
Well, here's the thing.
Because he was presumably in the orb.
I don't think any of that happened in reality. The deal with Legion Legion in the comics has multiple personalities in his head, and they've all got different powers. And that's how the Shadow King gets involved with him. He just kind of goes in there with this guy who's schizophrenic who has all these personalities. So I think that the nod they're making is that David Haller has Lenny and now Oliver Bird in his head. He them actually, but like psychic projections.
But
of the
the
infections
dancing
of it.
actually happened. There was an actual club.
But it's in his head. All of that is in his head.
Yeah.
But how did he like astral project himself into that club?
Yes.
that
He
has an
He could have
understanding of it?
teleported into a club. He's done that before.
He's represented in there. I think.
Like I don't think a physical dance battle happened at this club, right?
They found him in a club. I'm saying he could have teleported into the club, but this was all what we are seeing. I think you're right. What we are seeing is it's a construct of what's going on in his own mind.
I don't think he actually went there at all.
Yeah, I think it's all a construct in his head.
Well, right. So I think the club represents something, and I think his memory isn't clear about what actually happened or whether he even saw those people or not.
Right.
Like I don't know that he even saw Shadow King at all.
Yeah.
Like he's just
Or the bald version of him, the devil with yellow eyes.
That was interesting that we saw not just the devil with yellow eyes this time. We didn't see
the
him.
guy with the two eyebrows.
We actually saw Amal Farouk. Like that
Farouk
looked like
in Paris, sitting in front of the Eiffel Tower,
which is a callback to the actual It was in Morocco, I think, where Xavier and Shadow King had their duel, and he destroyed his body. Which, by the way, they referenced in this episode. I love that he says,
my father.
My father just destroyed him or something."
Well, and when they showed it in season 1, he drew the dad. He's like, "Oh, so my father," and he was conceptualizing him as a stick figure, but he was totally drawing Professor X.
Yeah, he was a bald dude.
Yeah.
Wait, so, okay, Randy, last season, at the end of the season, we saw the orb, and you had theories about what the orb might be.
None of which panned out, sadly.
Well, do we even
We don't
know
know.
what this orb is now?
Well, the two theories that I think Les and I had these theories was that it was possibly that it could be the Shi'ar. They're alien, people.
Definitely not the Shire.
And we had thought that it could be Arcade, who kidnaps X-Men and put them in Murder World. And it's neither of those things. Which
Okay.
is too bad because I
Did
would
you
have
see the thing like scenes from next week?
I think I did, but maybe I didn't.
I didn't.
Okay, so there's a part at the end where Carrie is like dissecting the orb, and he's saying like, "This is so weird. I could swear I built this."
Oh, huh.
Interesting. So it
So
to be a
he's
future
also in the future,
construct.
right?
Yeah.
The Future of Superheroes. What a great title. Keep working that. All right. I mean, man, this show is incredible.
It's
Yeah,
really,
it's
really good.
And I don't know what's happening, and I don't care.
So my
Yeah.
question, though, is to Paul,
Okay.
you have a show like this, and then you have a show like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Sure. Why do you keep watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? There's plenty of shows of this caliber out
And,
there.
and you're right. And there are shows like, for example, Arrow, where I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm walking away from this.
Yeah.
Or shows like Gotham, where I was like, you know what? I like Batman. I'm not that interested in Batman as a little kid. So I'm just not going to. I watched the first episode and I was like, nope. So you're right. Why do I make the choice to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? And for me, it is the characters. I enjoy spending time with Fitz and Simmons and Mac making his movie references. Oh my God, he makes so many great movie references to all the AI Deadly Robot movies during the LMD season. And in fact, that's a great example is when they do the Agents of Hydra and like they meet up with Agent Tripp again, right? And it's like, oh, it's like this old friend. So I enjoy the characters.
But you don't regard Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as like a guilty pleasure, do you?
No, I don't.
Like,
I don't watch it ironically.
Yeah.
I don't love it. I recognize that it has a lot of flaws, and I understand people who don't watch it. Right? If somebody was like, "Oh, I hate Legion; it's the worst. I don't get it," I'd be like, "Then I don't care if you want to watch it or not, and I don't need to talk to you about it
because you walk into traffic
because you don't get it."
Yeah.
Right? The fact that you don't get it is what makes it great, but you do get it. Like when you rewatch season 1, you're like, okay, there's still some stuff that's very unclear, but there's this through line that I can piece together now.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I'll do that with the season 2 at the end.
I don't know why I'm still watching it.
You're a sadist.
I've bailed on better shows.
Yeah.
You know, like I've got what is it? I stopped watching Masters of Sex. I stopped watching.
Yeah. I haven't caught
watched
up on
season
Americans.
1, and then
I stopped watching You're the Worst.
Americans is still good.
I know. I you know what it was? It was. I mean, that's a whole other issue. But like, I've bailed on better shows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, and this is it's such a weird rationale, but like, I don't have a lot of like silly shows like this that I can watch without my wife.
Yeah.
And she so rarely wants to watch something like this.
Yeah.
Like, she wants to watch her stuff, and I just don't have a lot of things that are just mine.
Yeah,
And I need more.
Yeah, I've got shows like that where it's shows that I watch. I mean, it's my wife doesn't watch much TV at all, so it's whatever it is stuff I watch. But there's stuff I want to watch when I'm focused and paying attention, and there's stuff I want to watch when I'm like working on the newsletter for the store or doing some other stuff. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fits that category.
Yes.
But I've got like 30 other shows that fit that category first.
Then I need some good recommendations.
I'll give you a list of background viewing.
But
You should listen to this podcast. I'm kidding.
Well, but here's the other problem with that too is that I need something that is not just background viewing, but something that's just kind of easy.
Yeah.
And all of the really good stuff out there, I feel like, requires all of your attention.
Yeah.
And if it's good, my wife wants to watch it.
Yeah.
And then I can't move on without her.
I have the same issue. There are certain shows I watch these with my wife, and those are the ones that I have I'm gated on, right? But then there's other shows like Legion where I have to give this all my attention, or I get lost.
Right.
Right. I really need to pay attention to this one. With Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I can paint minis while I watch that. Because I wasn't nerdy enough watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm going to paint some miniatures for a Dungeons & Dragons game at the same time.
All right, well, let's talk about our last show for a little bit here. Krypton, over on Sci-Fi, who's now getting their own little DC show. Mm-hmm. This is the first season, brand new show, and I'm not sure if this is tying in to any of the other DC shows on television right now, but
It's not.
Okay, I think it's probably better for that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this first season, or the first episode, it's taking place a couple generations before Kal-El exists. This is in his grandfather's era, when his grandfather is a 23-year-old strapping young sex icon.
Yep.
And
Bad boy.
he's a bad boy.
Streets of Krypton.
The bad boy of Krypton.
Yeah, he starts out like Chris Pine in Star Trek, just getting in bar brawls.
If Chris Pine had no charisma.
Wow. You're not wrong. But I thought there were some interesting things going on in this pilot. I didn't like it initially, but I think the more it went on, I thought it had actually a pretty strong finish.
I can't hate it because I was too bored to hate it.
Oh, it was terrible at the beginning.
I gave zero fucks about this show, and I would not have watched it if we weren't going to talk about it tonight on this podcast.
Yeah,
I watched
too.
it because I knew I was going to have to talk about it.
Me too. I didn't hate it. Again, I applaud it for being ambitious, because that is a very ambitious show.
Yeah.
But it's also a good lesson of like, hey, S.H.I.E.L.D., you want to do an episode in space, or you want to like create your own world to like do a thing? Like, look at this show.
Yeah.
This, you really feel like you are on this other planet that has its own ancient culture and all this stuff. And
But even then, the dialogue, the dialogue and the like the bar looks like any other bar. Like you put a few rocks in there, it doesn't make it space.
Right.
Like
and it didn't feel like any version of Krypton we've seen anywhere else, right?
But look at the spaceships they put in there. One spaceship looked better than anything Shield's done.
The little skimmer his mom used to rescue him, like that was a great special effect.
Yeah, when they shoot across and they go to the Fortress of Solitude, I thought all of that was pretty impressive. Like as the show built up, and once like Adam Strange came in, and
I hated their Adam Strange.
Yeah.
too. I didn't like the dude himself, but I liked kind of the plot point of like, oh, we're gonna tether you to the current like version of Superman that like most of the audience already is familiar with, and show why you're relevant, because somehow you're going to have to, in a way, save
your
your
shit
grandson.
together.
I'm like, okay,
Well,
that's kind of interesting.
Here's my so I hated Adam Strange.
Yeah.
Like he was literally and physically, he was physically out of place. On that show, but he came along right at the right time.
Yeah.
Because I caught myself saying, "Who gives a shit?"
It was exactly at the halfway point.
It really was.
When
I
his
was
rescues
like, who
rescues him, and I was like, I don't care about any of this show. Why is this
No.
happening?
Yeah.
I was like, "Who cares?" And then he showed up, and he's like, "Okay, there's another." And I was like, "Oh yeah, still don't care."
Yeah.
Because it's like they took one of the most beloved comics, beloved superheroes of all time, Superman.
Yeah.
The gold standard of superheroes, Superman, and they said everything about him that is interesting, that we care about, is gone.
Yeah.
And now everybody is just on this other planet. Like it is such a tangential relationship to
It's
Superman.
a doomed planet
So-
too.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Because I 100% agree. But if you look at it, forget about Superman. Forget about Adam Strange showing up. If you look at it and it's a show about a guy whose family used to have a name and then they lost their name because their grandfather was transgressive against the government. And so now they're living in poverty as a result. And while they're living in poverty, he's sleeping with somebody who has a name. But then, through reasons that you see in the show, he's now going to get a name, and he's betrothed to some other important person. But he's
plus,
a political.
It's all
pawn.
Shakespearean almost.
I mean, it is.
There's this backdrop of the religious leadership has taken over from what was a science-based. There's all this interesting stuff. None of it's presented in an interesting way.
Right. I'm with you. That was the best part of the show, is that because he's saying that we are not alone in the universe, it's blasphemy, and that he's stripped of his name and everything. Like, I was like, oh, that's a pretty cool.
There is so much potentially interesting
Yes.
about this show. There's nothing actually interesting about this show.
I'm trying to remember. There was a novel. There was like a book on tape that I listened to that was.
Was it Dianetics?
It was not Dianetics. It was a show about Krypton. It might have been Dianetics.
It might have been Dianetics.
It was like the last days of Krypton or something like that. I don't even remember how I got it, or like somebody said, "Hey,
Was it given to you by Time Traveler and Doctor's Cat?
Did you have to hold two metal rods?
It was on a crystal that came from my grandson." But what I found interesting about it that I had never read in any of the comics, it probably was in the comics, I just hadn't read it, was this idea of Krypton having been cut off from the rest of the universe, and Jor-El saying we need to go out into space and there's stuff out there and we need to go, and everyone else was like, no, F you, and he's like, but the planet's going to blow up. And there are a lot of elements of that in this show.
The thing that drives me crazy is the notion of religion taking precedence and the people ignoring people who are telling them in science that the planet is going to be destroyed, and they need to listen, has so much potential resonance, and they didn't do shit with it.
Well, but here's the
Oh,
problem.
really?
with that.
Because I got the parallel.
I was going to say, it's so unrealistic. I can't believe a world where that could happen.
Well, but here's the problem with that, and this is kind of an issue I've had with TV for a long time, is that the way TV shows are sold is very different from what actually makes a good TV show.
Yeah.
And that's the premise.
Yeah.
You sell a TV show on its premise, and that's how you get people to tune in the first place.
Yep.
You're like, here is a story about what life was like on Krypton before they even shot, Kal-El into space.
Yeah.
Like, this is, 100 years or 500 years before that, or however long it was.
Right.
Like, this is we're going to really dive into what that culture was like and what this society was like and all this stuff. It's like, wow, that's really cool. Okay, let's make that show. And then you've got nothing to say about it.
Yeah.
Right.
When the truth is, to make a good show, you don't really need much more than just like good characters that are trying to accomplish some goal.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be any place.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing that's wrong with S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, what's hurting S.H.I.E.L.D. now is its premise.
Yeah.
That it is now tethered to the MCU. And if it wasn't, you could do anything.
Yeah.
You could have an awesome show about people who, like, are the cops for superheroes or, you know.
But you still wouldn't have a budget.
But it wouldn't matter because then you could, like.
No, that totally matters.
That is Krypton's biggest failing, though, is if you take all the superhero elements out, you take all the Superman elements out, and it is just a sci-fi show, then compare it to Star Trek Discovery, compare it to Babylon 5, for God's sake, which is 25 years old, and it still doesn't hold up.
Yes.
And that's the problem is you got to not just to be like, you don't have to do well with the Superman legacy. Gotham is bonkers, but it does what it does well enough that you can watch it because you're comparing it to other bonkers shows. This you're comparing to, if you're not comparing to other superhero shows, if you don't care about the Superman stuff, it's got to hold up better than other sci-fi shows,
Yes,
and it
agreed.
doesn't do that.
Yeah,
Right,
it
yeah,
should
it-
just, and which it is. It's just a
It's
sci-fi,
just a sci-fi show.
It doesn't even like The Expanse.
Yeah, The
right?
Expanse, yeah.
It's a great show,
Yeah.
and it doesn't touch it.
I'll say this for it. It is better than The Inhumans, which is
By
not
a
getting a second
lot.
season.
If it gets a second
Shocker.
season, Randy, you have to review episode by episode.
God damn it.
You made us a promise.
I did.
I'm going to say this. Even I didn't finish The Inhumans.
I didn't finish the first episode of The Inhumans.
Oof. I mean, no. I won't. Can I get into Can I get into one of my favorite things about The Inhumans?
Please
Have
tell me.
one? Yes.
Karnak.
Yeah.
The guy whose power is to see the flaw in anything. He can shatter a diamond by punching it in just the right spot.
And he never looked at the pilot for this show.
He didn't read the script.
If only Karnak had read the script.
No, I don't even want to say what I was going to say. What I was going to say is he loses his powers because he falls and hits his head. How did he fall and hit his head? He stepped on a loose rock climbing down a cliff. The guy who can see the flaw in anything stepped on a loose rock.
I'm sorry,
Sorry,
Paul,
Paul. I'm ending it. When
I know. Yeah. Can you edit this out? Because I don't. There's no point.
All right, now it's time for what Randy likes to call the dessert segment.
It is the dessert segment. It's delicious whipped topping. I got nowhere to go with that.
After our reverse
You
Bizarro
eat
shit
whipped
sandwich.
topping for dessert?
Look, I grew up in the Depression, okay? I'm sorry. I grew up with Depression.
Sorry.
Oh, you had whipped topping.
Well, we're going to do some listener questions. If you guys like us on Facebook, you guys can go to our page and ask us once a week, whatever you guys want. First question comes to us from our buddy Alec Miracle, who says, no spoilers for Sons of Anarchy, which is already a funny way to start this
Wait,
question.
I just want to stop. Is Alan Miracle related to Mr. Miracle?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think-
technically he is Mr.
He is
Miracle.
Mr. Miracle, yes.
Yeah.
He's
He's-
Mr. Miracle.
yeah.
Not
I guess, but his
Mr.
name's not Free. So if he was Scott Free, then
He's
if he was like
technically
Joe Free.
He's Mr. Miracle Jr. First to go by. Says he's only on season 2 of Sons of Anarchy and doesn't binge, which I would just like to go ahead and say you should stop now. The show's not going to get
That's
any
what I was
better.
waiting for. He asked what the impression was, and I knew it'd get Grant.
Man, I love that first season so much. I went through like 7 more terrible seasons of that show. Anyway,
Spoilers, it gets terrible.
What are your guys' spoiler-free thoughts on the show? Oh, okay. So yeah, does want me
That's
to
the
speak on
question.
it.
Tell him you have to go back.
The first season really starts like Hamlet, and it's pretty like well crafted to be able to have this motorcycle gang with this tragic past, and what you can see is this tragic future just already foretold with the characters and how all the cast play that. It's pretty brilliant. But then the show becomes almost a parody of itself.
Hamlet Part 8, The Revenge.
Yeah. It's just, man, this is the show I hate watched for the last 4 seasons of the show.
Well, when you
really
get into
didn't
season
care for
7 and they go into space, the sets look so terrible.
But the characters are great, right? That's what you're saying.
Space motorcycles.
I've never watched it.
I'm just saying, Alec, just bail right now. You don't need to do it.
Wait, should I watch season 1?
Man, I don't know. That's
There's no ending,
tough
right?
because
Like, there's no ending.
I don't want you to keep going from season 1.
I wouldn't. But should I watch season 1?
I thought this first season was actually really good. Did you like it?
I've never seen an episode of Sons of Anarchy.
Oh, really?
Nor have
That's
I.
it.
Caveat, by the way, Paul watches and enjoys Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So, yes, go ahead.
You
I
should
would
watch
say-
Roseanne. I mean, whatever. Fuck it.
My only hot take on Sons of Anarchy is that it always looked like a show that probably should have nudity, but it doesn't because it was on FX.
Yeah, that's very accurate. Next question comes to us from Kyle Volte, who says, "Okay, TV dudes and honored guests.
Ooh,
Seeing as we
honored.
have
Ooh,
He spoke too soon. Get out of here. Seeing as we have guests with us, what are some of your most memorable guest starring roles in favorite TV shows?
I really liked it when Lance showed up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
It does say, and Paul, can you just please tie it to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.?
So actually, I have an example from a very recent show. If anybody's watching The Looming Tower.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Uh-huh.
It's
All
so
right.
great.
I'm behind, but I love
So
it.
good.
Yeah.
So Alec Baldwin is in it as the head of, I guess, CIA.
Yeah.
Does he say Patriot Act?
So he is playing it almost like Jack Donaghy, and in this week's season, he is in a meeting with Condoleezza Rice, who, if you watch 30 Rock,
It's
Jack
played by Tina
Donaghy
Fey in
dated her.
blackface.
Oh my god! But it's like if you don't look at the TV and you just listen, it's like Jack Donaghy he's actually at the White House having a meeting with his girlfriend.
Right,
Condoleezza
Condoleezza Rice.
Oh,
She's a member
man.
of Black Crusaders.
So it feels like a guest appearance from Jack Donaghy on the Looming Tower, which is such a serious show. It's kind of brilliant.
I'd say some of my favorite that whole run of guest stars they had of the people who were going to replace Michael Scott on The Office.
Oh, man, yeah.
Every guest star they had for that job was amazing.
Yeah.
So when Jim
I'm
Carrey
not
was
necessarily on board with that. I
Really?
feel like I hated half of them.
you hated Will Ferrell as
Oh yeah, Will Ferrell in particular.
DeAndre, what's his name?
I think I
Oh,
didn't
man,
like
I
Will
loved-
Ferrell.
I loved
I didn't
Will
like.
Ferrell on
I
that.
didn't like Idris Elba when he was on there.
Idris Elba was weirdly out of his depth. He was
Yeah,
not
I
great
mean
at
he
comedy.
was. Yeah, that was a rough one. But
Was Tim
he
Dillon
was
there?
there as like somebody who wasn't any fun.
Yeah,
That was it.
that's the joke.
But Robert California,
Oh, yeah, James
just
Spader.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay,
And like Jim Carrey had a funny take on it, and
the British lady from
Catherine
Doctor
Tate.
Who.
Yep.
Who-
Yeah.
yeah, her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I go, and this is more of a recurring than a guest, I guess, but every time Craig Robinson shows up on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I am delighted.
Yes.
What's his character's name? Is it? Oh man, I'm blanking on it now. But he's the guy who's like he's in love with Rosa. He and Jake have like this huge buddy relationship, but he keeps screwing Jake over. Like I love that character. He's the Pontiac Bandit.
His name's Doug Judy.
Doug Judy, the Pontiac Bandit. Every time he shows up, the latest one, he showed up in a hostage situation. He had taken hostages. Oh man, it's so good. And every time, you know he's going to screw over Jake, and every time he does, and it's still funny.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, I want to go with Barry on Archer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Barry the Bionic Man.
Poor Barry.
supervillain.
He's got such a tragic story.
He really does.
Like I often am like, okay, Barry's the villain on that show, but aren't they really the
They're
villains?
so the villains. They're so terrible.
But as long as we're talking guest stars, Burt Reynolds on Archer was phenomenal.
oh my god,
guest star.
yes. As was Kenny Loggins.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump to the next question. This comes to us from Jonathan Huffnagel, who says, "Dear TV dudes, what are your thoughts on the return of a series of unfortunate events?" Well, let me ask you guys real quick. All right, is anyone watching that?
We're going to. It's not on the schedule for another few weeks.
I am not.
No.
I watched I feel like I watched. Did it just? Oh, there was already one season, right?
Yeah, season
Okay.
2
Yeah.
just
So I
started.
watched the first episode of the first season, and I will say I'm sad that Stephen Bochco died because he did bring us Doogie Howser, which means he did bring us Neil Patrick Harris, and Neil Patrick Harris is a national treasure.
That's true.
Agreed.
So I can't be unhappy watching NPH, but I don't have any connection to the series of unfortunate events.
It's like this beautiful, whimsical show that feels almost like Brian Fuller, but there's some of that charm of Fuller missing from it that I just couldn't really
I really liked it.
grab onto it.
I'm excited for season 2, and I hear that Patrick Warburton and Nathan Fillion play brothers in it.
Oh, all right. I might be on board just for that.
So it's on the schedule. We will be discussing it in a few weeks, or at least me and maybe Les will. Grant may not watch it.
All right, well, here's another question that ties pretty well into what we were just discussing. Alex Mitchell says, with the success of Legion on FX, what are some other superhero or comic book characters that could be given similar prestige or artistic treatment in the
That's
show?
a good question, because you go like B or C list, right? You go sort of out there a little bit.
I've been thinking about this, so I had a couple of them. One, it would be Spider Jerusalem. I would love to see if it was done right. Obviously,
Just transmit?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, Transmetropolitan will make an awesome show, but man, you'd have to have an enormous budget.
Yeah.
You'd have to have the perfect star, and I don't know
Yeah,
who
the
that
star's
is.
got to
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have
would
to have an
all
enormous
be on
budget
him.
nowadays for that. I think
It's weird, man. There's
Yeah.
all kinds of effect stuff in that.
You'd
in
need
that
great
thing.
makeup. You'd need great
Yep.
makeup people.
But I also thought Ecstatics
Oh, yeah.
would be really fun.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I would like to see, and it kind of feels tied to Legion because of the multiple personality. I'd like to see Moon Knight.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't. There was rumors Netflix was going to do it. I don't want them to do a boring Moon Knight. I want an out there, crazy Legion style Moon Knight.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
the original stuff by Doug Mensch and Bill Sienkiewicz was crazy out there, and spiritually it fits with Legion.
is he really connected to an Egyptian god? Is
Or
he
is he
not?
just nuts?
Is he just?
Did
yeah,
he
is
really die, or was
crazy?
he just unconscious?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
No, that's a good
He's
call.
got 3 different personalities,
That's
like
a great
distinct
call, yeah.
personalities, as a Batman kind of superhero.
Yeah.
Exiles would be kind of fun.
Yeah.
I always liked the episodic nature of Exiles, how there are these different X-Men or, characters from that X-Men universe all trapped in this Prismo cube outside of time,
Yeah.
to reference Adventure Time. And they're jumping in quantum leap style to just kind of like solve crimes.
Different universes
Yeah.
of X-Men realities.
If they did Exiles on TV, I want them to do sort of Legion style sort of weirdness.
Yeah.
But I think what I really want is someone who could bring that Thor Ragnarok Taika Waititi style to it. It's got to be a little Technicolor, weird,
Yes.
embracing the goofiness of it. That's what I want.
I want Mimic and Morph and
Yeah.
Blink and just doing whatever.
Yeah, and they're just going into a different crazy version of X-Men storyline every episode, and you can just be like, what's the craziest, wackiest X-Men stuff? You want Shi'ar and Starjammers? That's what we're doing this week.
Yeah.
But you know what? If you had asked me that question 5 years ago, like half the things I would have listed, more than half, have already been made.
Yeah, that's what's amazing.
I would have said Alias. I
Yeah.
would have said Preacher. Even though I feel like they kind of screwed up Preacher.
They're doing Watchmen right now.
They're
over on
doing
HBO?
Watchmen.
Damon
Really?
Lindelof is doing Watchmen. for
My
HBO.
boyfriend, guys.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, don't say anything bad about him because seriously, like one day he and I are gonna get married.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I know. I've seen the letters.
But don't worry.
And the
It'll be a
restraining order.
twist.
They've been married all along.
They've been married the whole time. But I'd say, last but not least, there's Invisibles, just because it's one of my favorites.
Sure. Yeah.
Invisibles would be really cool, but again, it'd have to be like weird.
It would have to be like Legion
that. I feel
weird.
like is more like Legion.
Yeah.
where it's just like really trippy and
Yeah.
Invincible or Invisible?
Invisibles.
Invisibles.
I don't know what that one is.
ooh, it's good.
It's crazy conspiracy mindfuck shit.
Man,
Yeah.
they're doing Runaways, and the first half of that season was great.
I thought the
Ooh.
second half was pretty good.
Second half was so garbage.
It's
Also,
slow.
Doom Patrol.
Yeah, Doom Patrol.
It just fell up like they were taking too long. They were doling it out, and they really wanted the parents to be a part of the thing.
Yeah, and I'm like, dude, run away already. You're
Yeah,
called
just-
Runaways. Run the
out of
fuck
there.
away.
But not before you have the cheesiest battle in front of that giant. Whatever. That's just
know
so
what?
fucking dumb.
They're doing Cloak and Dagger, and
Yeah.
it's going to be boring and bad because it's like on ABC Family or something.
Freeform.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad.
But if you did Cloak and Dagger in that sort of Legion style, where it was about like gritty 80s runaway drugs.
I'm going to stop you
powers,
right
like-
there and say, if you did anything in Legion style, it's going to be
yeah,
amazing.
okay, yeah. It'd be great. Yeah.
That's the template.
Well, see, to me, Legion style means that it's not afraid to get like psychedelical.
Yeah.
Or just unconventional and mature and
Right,
like
and weird, like
complex
man
storytelling.
thing.
That can be. Oh boy, that'd be cool. Man Thing would be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like all the weird psychedelic stuff that was
Yeah.
being written in the 60s and 70s, like that can be made Legion style today if you could find a home for it.
Anything Jim Starlin wrote, anything Steve Gerber wrote, bring all those things in.
I'd like to see the Meta Barons.
Oh, yeah.
Alejandro Jodorowsky's Meta Barons. Oof.
Yep.
That would be amazing.
That would require a huge
sci-fi.
budget.
Oh, yeah, huge budget.
League of Extraordinary Gentlemen would work as great as a TV show.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that's totally
That
true.
would be a great show.
That would be an awesome TV
What
show.
about the League of Extremely
Ordinary Gentlemen.
Ordinary Gentlemen? I couldn't even remember the name of it. I was like,
What was that thing I was
what was
on?
the podcast we did?
that podcast we did for several years.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. One last question, guys. This comes to us from Jonathan Haptemichael, who says, "Hi, dudes. With Crazy Ex-Girlfriend renewed for one final season, what overlooked character do you want to have a musical number before the show ends?" And I'm actually going to take this question and extend this. I'm going to say, what character from any TV show that you guys watch would you like to have a musical number
Well, that's a
from also?
fantastic question.
What? Pick a favorite show.
Take a fair show, and what would their musical number?
All of a sudden, there's a musical number.
I don't have an answer yet. I have to think of it. But I will say, as much
It's gotta be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D..
as much as I frequently dislike many things about Flash and Supergirl, even though I also love them or want to love them, the musical Flash and Supergirl, or Barry Allen and Kara singing.
Yeah,
Did you
that was
see
really good.
That was
good.
really great.
Well, they both came out of Glee. Like, they made
Exactly.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would like, and this is just the top of my head, I would like a musical number that is the entire ensemble of You're the Worst. But I want it to be like Rent, where it's like about how awful everything is.
I would like to take the newest season that's supposedly filming right now of Arrested Development.
Make it a musical?
No, I want the whole thing to be a musical.
No, the whole season.
But I want Jessica Walters and Tony Hale to do a Mother Boy, sort of musical number that they actually have to do in full.
Yes.
I need this.
I'd like to see a rap battle on Counterpart
Oh my God! Between him and himself.
between him and himself.
Oh, can the other J.K. Simmons do anything like that? Can he rap?
I don't think either J.K. Simmons can rap.
I bet J.K. Simmons can
But
rap.
I bet you J.K. Simmons can. I don't think either one of
the
his
characters?
Silk characters
That's true.
can do.
That's true.
But then we saw Peter Dinklage all of a sudden.
That's true.
rapping those
man.
Dorito
Point.
commercials.
Yeah.
Yeah, which Game of Thrones character should have a musical number?
Ooh, what's
Ramsay
his face?
Bolton and his dogs.
The
soon?
guy with the big red beard.
Oh,
his name?
Tormund Giantsbane.
Yeah, Tormund
I
Giantsbane.
want him to do a ballad about how much he loves Brienne.
Yes.
And there should be she should be like a floating misty head 80s style behind him when he sings it.
I feel like Barry's and his little birds could do something. He starts singing, his little birds just
That's
come
actually the
behind
name.
him.
Well-
That's the name of their group.
I was gonna say Buffy or Grey's Anatomy or Mystery Science Theater or Bob's Burgers or several others, but they already did it.
They all did it. They all did it.
Already covered.
You know who hasn't done a musical episode, but you would think they would have, is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
They really need one, guys. All right. Well, EJ, I hope you got your money's worth here for this episode. Mixed bag on the reception of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but I'm pretty sure you expected that anyway.
I'm pretty sure it's not mixed. I'm pretty sure you all think it sucks and I think it's okay.
Mixed was being generous, yes. I feel like once 75% hates it, it's
still-
hated.
it's still
It's
mixed.
still mixed.
Everybody doesn't hate it as much as I do.
Right.
It's a bad egg. All right, we're going to go ahead and end things there, though, but we want to thank you guys for coming by and joining us this week. Paul Benjamin, Joe Parsons, thank you guys so much.
My pleasure.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.
And where can people find you guys?
No, what's your address?
We have stalkers who get a little bit weird.
So you want to take a left off of...
What? Then they also want to know, what lotion do you use? No, like on Twitter, Facebook, or your website.
I occasionally tweet. I am at the Paul Benjamin.
All right. So go check them out there. What about you, Joe?
You can all fuck right off.
Okay.
And no, but Master Pancake Theater does shows every Friday and Saturday at the Alamo Drafthouse.
Yeah, come by. It's a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
Is
Oh,
that
thank
you can all fuck right off.com or .net?
Oh, you guys couldn't even get a .com?
Yeah, that's all right.
They got a .fuck. It's FUQ.
It's new.
Nice. All right, guys, we're going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will be back next week to talk. What are we talking about? Just more garbage shows, I'm
I
sure.
haven't looked. I don't know.
All right, until then.
TV Dudes out.
The TV Dudes is an independently run podcast and a member of the Permanent Record Podcast Network. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, please go to patreon.com/TVDudes. You can like us on Facebook and Twitter at TV Dudes, and help us out on iTunes by giving us a 5-star rating and writing a review. To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com and permanentrcrd.com. I'm Grant Davis. Thanks for listening.